I've been called the Startup Grandpa.
Startup Grandpa.
The word startup did not even exist. I'm working right now on my 17th startup across 15 industries. I can solve pretty much any problem, find solutions that are not outside the box. They're like a few planets away from the box. I focus on the giver. I see myself as a giver.
I want to learn about who you are.
Okay.
Not necessarily what you do, but why you do it. Okay, so I'm here with Dan today. Dan is Mr. Startup of Malaga. I think that's probably the best way to describe you, no?
I've had a lot of titles in Malaga. I've been called the Startup Grandpa.
Startup Grandpa.
I've had the Startup Yoda. I've had a few.
What earned you those titles?
I think a mix of a lot of experience, like probably way too much experience at some point, and the ability to talk about it and to share a little bit the pros, the cons, the painful truths, all of the slaps in the face and the punch in the face and everything.
All right, so we got the pleasantries out of the way. All right, so this is 50 lunches. I'll quickly explain the concept. I'm curious about your story. I want to learn about who you are.
Okay.
Not necessarily what you do, but why you do it. So I'm going to be asking questions to figure out what are your passions? What are the things that get you going? Why do you do what you do?
Okay.
Excited about that. And the more of these conversations I have, the more patterns I start to see myself. Like, that sounds interesting. Like, that doesn't speak to me at all, right? So I'm looking for patterns across conversations.
Okay.
And then about halfway in, we're going to switch the focus to me. I'm going to share a little about my journey, my passions, my skills, what I want to do for the world, and then use you and your perspective and your network as a device to brainstorm.
Okay.
So I want to see my profile through your eyes.
Let's do it.
And see what ideas come out of that.
Let's do it.
I'm specifically not going to be asking for a job, but I'm very specific about that. Yes, I am looking for work, but not from you. But what I am looking for is that idea, that spark that will lead to something big. And I got some ideas already. I'll share them as we get there. Okay, you ready for this? Okay, awesome. Let's do it.
Let's do it.
Why are you so interested in startups?
So startups. So there's something I kind of discovered about myself very late in life, so much later than I should have, is that I knew since I was very, very young that my brain was working differently than most people.
Yeah.
There was not really a word for it back then. It was just considered annoying for teachers and for people. And I was not paying attention. I was doing things differently than others and focusing on different things than others. It can be a real challenge if you work in a traditional, very structured environment, but can be very liberating if you live and work in a more chaotic environment. And startups are particularly in the beginning, they are the pure definition of chaos. From my first job, I realized that I don't fit in boxes. My second job was a startup. The word startup did not even exist. So it's going to date me a little bit, but that was 1988.
Okay.
And I discovered that a company where things were growing fast, where everybody was doing a little bit of everything, where the roles were loosely defined, where everybody can contribute to a lot of different things, and people that had a different mindset. I really realized that that's what I enjoy, is really the beginning. And because of the way my brain is wired, and now with the experience I've had, I'm working right now on my 17th startup across 15 industries. And so that experience with the way my brain is wired gives me the ability to easily go from tactical to super strategic to back to tactical and kind of shift between that. So I can see the big picture and I can go back to the details whenever needed. But by connecting dots that most other people may not necessarily see, I see specific patterns, I see specific things that allow me to create solutions and to find solutions that are not outside the box. They're like a few planets away from the box. So they're really, really far away. And over the years, I've come to one interesting realization is that I can solve pretty much any problem. I can always find a solution with two caveats. The first one is that I need to understand the problem. And the second one is that sometimes the solution is worse than the problem. I see it as a superpower. People would see it as, like in a traditional corporate environment, it's not helpful, to put it very mildly.
Mm.
So,
If I throw out two terms to you, and this is intentionally unfair,
well, go ahead.
I'd say you're either a entrepreneur or a visionary. Which one of those speaks to you the most?
Both. That's the trick. Visionary, and it's a curse sometimes, is, for example, timing can be a real challenge. Like, an example was a startup I started building in 2016. It was a law enforcement / defense startup. It was a system to detect and intercept rogue drones. And at that time, nobody was interested. There was no investor who wanted to put money in it. It was incredibly difficult to get even people to come work with me. It was insanely hard.
Yeah.
Fast forward 6 years later, there's hundreds of billions of dollars that are invested in that industry like every year. Timing. Founder, as opposed to entrepreneur. I think an entrepreneur is somebody who is more disciplined than I am. The founder is a composite of a number of things, in my opinion. It's one part visionary, but one part also catalyst, one part glue, the ability to bring people together and to keep them together. I think charisma can play a role, but it's also having the ability to create and to build a very, very enticing vision and mission, and things that really get people excited and get them to really want to come and actually do this, and come work with you, not for you, with you.
Have you always been a founder, visionary personality?
Yeah.
If we go back to childhood.
So my father was he was an entrepreneur because this is what existed back then. I think he could have been a really good founder. He built a bunch of businesses. Some of them succeeded, a lot of them failed. And so I got to see a lot of the struggles and a lot of the fights he went through. And it's something that was always fascinating to me.
When are you most excited? When do you have the most fun?
I see usually fairly easily problems, like things that need solving. This was a real big challenge when I was working in corporate. I was working for a fairly large US corporation in health tech. They had one component that was health tech. Everything else was just, healthcare, medical devices. And they got acquired by Philips. And so I went from a publicly traded 5,000 employee company to a publicly traded 150-year-old, 140,000 employee company. So both of them were very, very, very restrictive in everything. And it was one example where we had acquired a Norwegian company and we had to integrate them into our systems. It was a 15-employee company. When I was doing this as a consultant before, it would have taken me a week, maybe 2. It took me 9 months because of all of the steering committees and the meetings we had to do and change management forms we had to get signed by all the stakeholders that were spread across the planet. And so we had to FedEx the papers to each person in Hong Kong, in Tokyo, in the US, West Coast, and then East Coast, and then back to France to sign off to get to the next step.
I can only imagine the frustration.
I was screaming. I was screaming. And I left that and I decided corporate is just not my life.
All right, so that's your pain.
Yep.
Where's your
So that's
pleasure?
me.
Where's your pleasure?
So I can identify easily problems. I can fairly easily find solutions, strange solutions, but that work well.
Yep.
And I get excited when I find those solutions. I get excited when I start bringing them to people and see them excited. Okay. So first, I get excited when I see the people realize that I understand what their problem is, that I understand where they are, So there's a pattern I found over the years. I've had 25, 26 jobs altogether in my life. Common thread across all of them was each of these jobs was focused on a way to help people.
That brings me to purpose. Do you have a definition of your purpose? I know it's a big question.
Well, I mean, I would need to think about it and come up with a smart variation of make the world a better place, something like that. But
Okay, so I'll give you mine.
Okay.
Because I think we're aligned here. What I've concluded with is to use my natural abilities, the things I'm naturally good at, not the things I've learned, but that are truly me, and my experiences,
Yeah.
everything I've gained throughout my life, to contribute to something bigger than myself. Use abilities bigger than myself. Make the world a better place.
Yeah.
But not just make the world a better place. I want to be myself in doing that.
I don't think I've reached the point where I have crystallized that yet. As you age, there are a few things. Okay, let me rephrase that. As you get wiser, there are a few things that you see a little bit differently, and you see things in a more binary way. At least for me, I have one main overarching category system that is very binary, and from there, I then have a bunch of subcategories. But the first category thing is if people are givers or takers. And it's something that is becoming more and more clear in my mind that I don't have time, I don't have energy, I don't have anything to contribute to takers. That's it. And so I focus on the giver. I see myself as a giver. I've been doing a lot of things to help others even when it put me in a difficult place. But it's something that is, it's in my DNA. And so I try to only associate with people that are like this and people that are generous with everything, with their time, with their knowledge, with their insights, and share.
Let's look into the future. Nobody has a crystal ball, but what excites you?
About the future, I've had multiple people ask me, I thought was going to be the future of work, particularly with AI right now, and how it's going to impact the future of work and what spaces will look like in the future. I think that you'll have people that will be kind of super freelancers, multifaceted freelancers, able to do a little bit of everything. They'll be able to do some marketing, a little bit of sales. They'll be able to do a little bit of design and a little bit of application building using specialized AI tools or universal AI tool. And they'll be much more adaptable than the current people that are a puzzle piece that only fits in one very specific position. And I think this is where we will be moving towards. And I think the companies that have people like this are going to be the most successful.
So I like this idea of super freelancers, very adaptable people who can fit into many roles. I think you'll see that's part of my profile. So it gets me excited that you put those terms in there.
I think we have a lot of things in common. This is something that,
Absolutely.
And if you're a founder, if you've built at least one or two startups, it's something you've done. What is that? And like, okay, there's nobody to do marketing? Well, I guess I'll just learn marketing and start doing it.
How hard can it be?
Exactly. That's a famous last word.
Let's flip it. I mean, thank you so much. I'm loving this. I have a million notes, so I'll be going through this slowly when we're done. But I want to share a little about me. I'm going to try something I've never done in any of these interviews yet. You don't know me that well.
No.
Like we've bumped into each other at events over the last 5 years, and you probably don't know most of my story.
No.
So before I share that, what is your impression of me? Like, how would you explain Ken, given what you know?
So I know a few facts about you that are very fun. You're Norwegian originally. I know that you worked at Google at some point.
Yep.
You worked at a few big companies. I know that you play music. What I've deduced by talking with you is that you're a fairly passionate guy, which is something that I really enjoy. I love passionate people that have that spark. You're not a puzzle piece. You don't fit in traditional one box. It's also something I really appreciate. And this is why I think we have, always having a very interesting connection. But I don't know much more. To me, you're like the cool Norwegian surfer with the mix of California tech vibes, something like that.
Thank you. I love this question. Cool Norwegian surfer.
Yeah.
Got it. I'll share a little. I'm not going to give you my entire CV because that would take too long. But you are right. I am a cool Norwegian surfer.
Yeah.
My mom's from California.
Yeah.
I spent quite a lot of time in the US. Lived in San Francisco and New York. I say I'm the world's worst Norwegian because it's just too cold for me. Professionally, I tend to say I'm an ex-consultant.
Yeah.
Primarily technology consulting, but I've done M&A. I've done outsourcing, primarily focused around tech and helping the CIO agenda. I'm an ex-entrepreneur, and the X maybe is a question mark. But I spent 7 years building startups. I built an accelerator program where I invested in startups, realized that it was more fun to build startups. I went back to doing a startup factory, which we spoke about the other day. And then I got my opportunity to work at Google, where I got to use both the consulting brain and the startup brain. I was responsible for the relationship with Spotify for a few years, and then head of startups for Nordics and Benelux. So my job was to find the next 100 Spotifys, build relationships with those founders and help them grow. Love that. COVID happened. I ended up in Malaga. And then Google said, you can come home now. I was working in Stockholm. And I said, no, thank you. which was hard because that was in many ways a dream job. It's by far the best job I've had. I've had other fun roles, but it had this creative environment where I could be myself. And the culture at Google, I still believe is one of the best corporate cultures I've experienced.
That's my ideal job.
Yeah. Great company. They do want people in the office. And so I went off and I became head of remote instead. I started a podcast. I didn't really know what to do. So similar to 50 Lunches, I said, well, there's something about this remote thing. So I'm going to learn about it. And I want to not just work remotely, I want to help other people. So I did about 20 episodes. And then I used that because now I had the network, I had the expertise, I'd shared it back to the community. And I used that to find my next 2 jobs, head of remote with a startup out of Sweden, and then chief people officer at Ultimate Beauty out of Barcelona. So ex-consultant, ex-entrepreneur, ex-sales, ex-people. Very, very broad.
A lot of X.
A lot of X. I'd usually maybe label myself as a generalist, but nobody likes that term. But I think I'm very good at very many things. And
I think this is where you could have the most impact. It's the same thing. So this is why I am slightly obsessed with the startup venture studio model. And it's something what I really, really want to build here. I think this is a model that actually sounds to me good use of a lot of your experience and a good use of the way your brain works. The consultant, it's very lonely. It's the problem is that you don't really have a tribe. You don't have a team. And you strike me as somebody who is quite social.
Oh, very.
And do enjoy having a tribe.
One of my core values is togetherness.
Yeah.
I'd much rather be doing anything together with someone.
Exactly. And it's so much more fun than going at it alone. So it's either you work as a consultant for an Accenture or any of the big ones, and then you're very tied. You have rails.
Very,
and you
very
can't
clear
really,
box. Yeah.
You can't move outside the rails. Or you work on your own where you get a lot more freedom, but you're by yourself. And so there's nobody to help you. There's nobody to challenge you. There's nobody to, there's no sounding board. It's you in your head. Does that answer a little bit?
No, this is great input. I only have one more question.
Sure.
Should never say it's the final question because there's probably a million follow-ups. One of the cool things with this framework is I get to see the world through not just your eyes, but also the eyes of your network.
Yep.
I don't know what I don't know. So the final question is if there's 1 or 2 or 3 people that you feel I should be talking to that can further broaden my perspectives here, who would that be?
I know several people I need to connect you to. Some of the people that would be really fun for you to connect with are some of the people that work in Marbella. And I have an idea of a strategy for you to build those relationships. In Malaga, I know several people that could be fun for you to talk to.
It's fun because inspiration comes from the weirdest places, right?
Yeah.
You never know when you're going to strike gold.
True. And this is why, this is an example of things I've done that puzzles a lot of people in the community is that I try to meet as many of the people from the community as possible. I spend a ridiculous amount of time going and having coffee with people that just arrived and join the community. I'm just fascinated by them, their background, what they've done, where they are, what they're looking for. And it triggers ideas, connections, thoughts, and everything. Fuel, more oxygen to the system.
I love it. Thank you so much for your time, Dan.
My pleasure.
I really appreciate this.
My pleasure. That was a lot of fun.
Yeah, it was.